Our next lecturer will be Miss Elizabeth Hathaway of Netherlands. She is an independent researcher and a professional astrologer. Her lecture topic is the planetary highway to the Aquarian age, Utopia, Dystopia, and beyond.
I just want to say first, I'm absolutely delighted to be here. I haven't been in India for over 25 years, and I always wanted to visit again, and this conference has made that real for me. The title of my lecture is the Planetary Highway to Aquarius, and without further ado, let's go. So, I'm starting here with an image from Bode's Star Atlas from 1782. And what we have here is that area of the sky where there are many watery constellations. We have Cetus and Delphinus, but we also have the sea goat, Capricorn, the water carrier Aquarius, and of course Pisces. This is an area of the sky as well, which has been traditionally linked or been called the celestial sea, because the water here is supposed to be pure and crystal clear. And it's the home, of course, the sky is home to our myths, our stories, our gods. So the sky has always been hugely, has impacted on us. This here is the area where I live in Amsterdam. This is the sky there on the canal. And if you think of something like pareidolia, we have this ability when we look at the sky to see faces and images and symbols. And in fact, the constellations, in a way, it's like a giant child's book. We've just joined the dots and we've created these images. So the sky, as I said, has always been the place of myths. It's the home to myths. And while some myths are urban myths, they're just good stories, there are other myths which run much deeper than that. They tap into cultural memory, and astrologers have a really rich cultural memory. So as I've said in the paper I've published, I view the Aquarian age as a contemporary myth. The sky has always generated myths. Why should it not do so now? So this idea of a cultural memory, and why this idea of the coming new age or the age of Aquarius is so potent, is because there is already a sort of cultural undercurrent there. The Babylonian Tsar, the idea of the Platonic great year, or the Yugas. And what happens with cultural memory is that ideas are recycled and they are repackaged, if you like, to fit the needs of the time. So what is procession? Let's quickly explain it. I'm sure as you've all have this as well in sidereal or Jyotish, but the vernal point is slowly retrograding through the zodiac at the rate of about 1 degree every 72 years. And where many astrologers believe we're at the moment is this juncture where the Age of Pisces, which, if you like, we identify with the we identify with the birth of Christ, with the arrival of Christianity, and the dominant God thought, if you like, for the last 2,000 years. And now we are seen to be shifting into the vernal point, shifting into new stars, and we are entering, therefore, into this new astrological age. However, this is one of the reasons why I thought it would be interesting to do this topic. I mean, there's not only the Jyotish, Western, sort of contested sky, if you like. When we get to something like the Age of Aquarius, we have people that are very left-brain orientated, and this is that diagram there on the left, that want to explain it and want to have it grounded in physics or mathematics. But as always, when we get very left-brain orientated, we have almost like the Tower of Babel. We get lost in a clutter of tongues, and we get removed further and further away from the truth. So this is a very contested area of Western astrology, just as that split between Western astrology and Jyotish. For a start, there's those people who think, this is a modern concept. It was only, the Age of Aquarius only entered astrology in the late 19th century, so, you know, why should we give it any credence? This is particularly with a lot of the more classical astrologers. Then there's the huge debate about when does it actually begin. Not all the constellations are of equal size, for example, so should we use the constellations or should we divide the zodiac in equal 30-degree segments? There are astrologers too who are not happy with the association with the New Age, which they see as a sort of mixed bag of modern ideas, from feng shui to crystal healing. And they are uncomfortable with this sort of ride that the New Age has hitched on the back of astrology. And yet, you know, as I say in my article, this to me is like crying over spilt milk. I mean, it has happened and there is no way to turn back the tide on that. And whatever you might think of the New Age, it has certainly taken a lot of people away from the old Christian way of believing and turning people much more into their own inner search for consciousness. And as Professor Michael York, who has done a lot of research into the New Age, and he's also an astrologer, he said that the procession has now become the seminal framework which the new Age of Aquarius is actually, it's using astrology to justify and to give credence to this coming New Age. Less contested view of sort of cycles, and a sort of another way of astrologers look at cycles, is the cycle of Jupiter-Saturn. This is much less contested because we can date it, whereas with precession the size of the circle is so vast and the time scale is so big, it's very difficult to pin it down to a date. But we can do that with the cycles of Jupiter and Saturn. The Jupiter-Saturn cycle will fall 20 years, it's 20 years cycle from conjunction to conjunction, and the conjunctions will take place roughly every 200, 240 years in the same element, and then they will shift. This is called the mutation conjunction, and then there will be another 200 and odd years in the new element, and this complete cycle will take roughly 960 years, so like it's kind of a large cycle from beginning to end. What I actually noticed when I started looking at the conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn is that around the time, because many astrologers believe that the star that the Magi actually followed was a triple conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn and Mars in Pisces in, I believe, 6 BC. This conjunction was actually a fallback because some years before that we had the mutation conjunction in fire. So this was a conjunction in Pisces. It was a sort of what I call a fallback conjunction, because I don't consider these to be mavericks, because the first time something happens, it's the most important time. The first step, the first tooth, the first love. The first time something happens is the most important. So the actual birth of Christ, if we take that Jupiter-Saturn-Mars conjunction in Pisces as heralding his birth, was a case of a fallback in Pisces to the conjunctions of Jupiter-Saturn, which had already moved into fire. And what we've got at the moment is a similar thing. We've just having this shift into air of the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions. And if we look at somebody like Helena Blavatsky, who was a seminal figure in the, if you like, in establishing the idea of a new age. Her ideas were picked up by theosophists, and someone like Alice Bailey, for example, openly brings the astrology and the New Age together. So it's a direct line from Blavatsky. And Blavatsky herself is born at a junction between these two great circles, where we are having a shift at this point to the Earth series of conjunctions, and we're sort of getting to the point where we are moving as well in terms of our faiths and our beliefs away from Pisces towards something new. In fact, if you read the biography of Blavatsky by Gary Lachman, he goes as far as to say if she had been a man, she would be much more recognized for the impact that she has had on Western thought. So This is Abu Masha, who says to us that when the conjunctions of the two superior planets meet, they necessitate changes in dynasty, the occurrence of important matters, the change of kingdoms. I think that we need to add something new to this. We need to say that they also necessitate paradigm shifts, that important ways of being in the world, our accepted ways of being in the world, are about to undergo a transformation when these shifts take place. So if we look, for example, at the mutation conjunction in Earth, which is here, if you've got the book, all the data is in there. But this conjunction took place in Virgo, and this is actually the chart set for Greenwich. And it's interesting here that the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction are falling in the 6th house, which is the house of work. And this was, actually just 1 year after the establishment of the United Kingdom. The horoscope from the United Kingdom is 1801. And we know that the Industrial Revolution was taking place, just starting to take place. And this would, of course, completely transform the way that people approached work. It was broken down, the whole work process was broken down in a very Virgo fashion into smaller parts to improve the whole system. And I think what's interesting as well is that we have the Moon conjunct Pluto in Pisces, very closely opposite Jupiter and Saturn. So we have this sort of Pisces, which is very chaotic and random. It's less well organized. There's a lot of superstition. It's very faith, religion. These are all very strong Piscean themes. And the moon in mundane astrology relates to the collective. So we could say here with the moon, with this planet Pluto so close, that there is going to be a transformation taking place here, some kind of evolutionary shift, and that this will involve, as it's opposite Saturn and Jupiter conjunct in Virgo, this is going to involve deep cultural changes, and it's going to involve enormous changes to the organization of religions. This is actually a bi-wheel, because this is how I work. And in the inner wheel here, we have the horoscope of the UK. And I think personally that these conjunction horoscopes are saying something about the development of nations. So if you look at this, you can see there is quite a strong resonance between important planets in the horoscope of the UK. Venus, for example, the chart ruler of the ascendant ruler is here in Leo here, conjunct with Saturn in the mutation chart. And also there's a lot of 11th house activity here. So we can think actually about the rise of the British Empire and this sort of coming onto the world stage. And there's, as you will see soon when I show you the 1980 conjunction with the horoscope of Ronald Reagan, that there is a very close sense with this, like two hands on one stomach, if you like, that the nation that is rising here is, I think at this point, is reaching its summit possibly, is the UK. What you will see when you start to look and work with these charts, because I think they deserve much more attention because they're about paradigm shifts. If we look, for example, at this mutation conjunction with something like the origin of the species, which was a direct challenge to faith as it was experienced and lived through up until that time. And if you see the lines here, you can see that the origin of the species was published on the day of a new moon in Sagittarius opposite Uranus. So this is very clearly the revolutionary new idea that is being born into the collective, which is picking up very closely the Moon, Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn conjunctions in the mutation chart, the Earth mutation chart. So this is a brilliant original idea, but one that is going to be difficult to accommodate within the collective at that moment. And we know Darwin was originally ridiculed and portrayed as a monkey with a, you know. So this is the first mutation conjunction, well not the mutation, it is the mutation conjunction into Earth. And again, this is a really interesting and quite profound chart. What is really striking is the way that most of the planets are feeding into Jupiter and Saturn. You have the Mercury-Sun conjunction here, which is Saturn ruled. You have Mars in Aquarius, which is also Saturn ruled. You have Neptune and Venus, both in Sag, which are both Jupiter ruled. And all of the planets are falling within a 120-degree orb. So what we have here is a narrow band of opportunity. And it's quite a difficult chart. And what is very, very striking about this chart is the position of the moon. Because the moon here is in Scorpio, and the moon is in Scorpio in the discovery horoscopes of all three of the outer planets. It was in 14 degrees 58 Scorpio, the moon, in the discovery horoscope for Uranus. So this was an upset actually to the celestial order that had existed up until that time. Uranus, suddenly the universe doubled in size when Uranus was discovered. So this was a challenge to our whole notion of the universe. We could say with the discovery of Neptune that our ideas of faith, because we had the Babylonian tablets had been found, we knew that the Babylonians had a creation myth that closely resembled our own. We have the birth also of spiritualism, which is opening up new areas. So this is as well, it's kind of a crisis of faith in some way. And when we get to Pluto, I mean, I could quote Oppenheimer, who when we dropped the bomb said, now we have become death, the destroyer of worlds. This is a very, very profound responsibility and that was placed on our shoulders when we split the atom, when we discovered Pluto. So with the moon in Scorpio in this mutation conjunction chart, there's a clear sense that that humanity again is at a crisis. However, as I say in the article, there's also some hope in that, because we also know that the scorpion as a creature has been on this planet for 430 million years. It survived the extinction of the dinosaurs, and Scorpio has a deep will and desire to survive. So I think in one sense, whatever happens, this is a positive position for the moon in this chart. I believe this chart favors the US. When we look at this horoscope here, we see that, for example, it falls very close to the inauguration of Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher together, changed the economic structure of the planet. Reaganomics, this trickle-down economics. It's completely changed our way of thinking about wealth. What's really interesting in this chart as well, if you look at the mutation chart, Mars is in early Aquarius. And from 1789 until 1937, the inauguration horoscopes of the United States took place with the sun in Pisces. They always fell on March the 4th. But in 1937, they were changed to the current date of January the 20th. And the sun here and Mars are closely conjunct. This is the mutation horoscope air and the sun for the inauguration. And as we know, the inauguration always takes place on that date. Therefore, the sun in every president's inauguration for the duration of this cycle will see the sun conjunct with Mars. And actually what we know the US for is its warmongering potential. It has natal Mars in the 7th house. So a quick run of the themes of that Jupiter-Saturn air in case I forgot something. We have Reaganomics, this trickle-down economics, government deregulation. We have a massive expansion of the global economy, and of course globalization is one of the key words for Aquarius. We have this idea with Mercury, if I go back there, you see Mercury and the Sun are conjunct here in Capricorn, square in that Jupiter-Saturn. So a very narrow, as I said, and a tiny cadre of winners, which is emphasized by Saturn's exaltation in Libra, as it is in the 10th house in the US horoscope. So yeah, this is a clear, in my mind, this is a clear indication that the shift to air was showing the decline in the power and influence of the UK. You can also look at the chart against the UK chart, and I think that's quite clear as well that that's happening, and the arrival of the US. And this, again, is just an interesting slide. This is the idea of how, companies are becoming less diverse. Media is becoming less diverse. This tiny cadre of winners, everything within an orb of 120 degrees in the chart. And most of the planets, except for the moon, and I think it was Pluto, are all ruled by Jupiter and Saturn. I just think it's interesting to show you this bi-wheel because it's the horoscope of India against the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. And you see the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction air is conjunct with Neptune in the horoscope of India. And I did a quick search on what is India famous for just before I came here, and it was Bollywood, spirituality and food. Those were the, that was just a Google search. And I think that's sort of very Neptunian, particularly the spirituality, which is something I personally really associate with India. Moving quickly, this took a bit of searching, but this, when Tim Berners-Lee came with his idea for the World Wide Web, I think he realized that it was a brilliant idea and he really wanted to claim it. So instead of keeping it to himself, he threw it out there to all his colleagues and said, hey guys, look, this is the idea I have. He says, I promise to post a short summary of the World Wide Web project. Mail me with any queries. I believe he's a Leo, so he totally claimed this, this discovery for himself. And as we know, the impact of the web on our lives has been so immense. So as opposed to sitting in the left brain and trying to understand when Aquarius starts, we can simply be in the world and see it manifesting around us. So this is the horoscope that I personally use for the web in its entirety, the World Wide Web, which indeed really strongly picks up on planets in the mutation conjunction to air. We had that Sun-Mercury conjunction in Capricorn, which here is conjunct with the Uranus-Neptune conjunction, also in Capricorn. So Barbeau says this cycle of Uranus-Neptune is related to the growth of capitalism. It's the interaction between capital, Uranus, with labor, Neptune. Richard Tarnas sort of says it awakens the mythic, the spiritual, the transcendent, the imaginal. And these are things that we can certainly see in the positive, in the way that the web has, allowed people to reach others and create personalities themselves online. But we can also see the way it's been used even more by big business, So yeah, this is a really interesting chart, and if you read the paper, you'll see it. So I'm going to have to move on quickly. There's a lot of real links between the horoscope of the web and the horoscope for the mutation into air, and I'm sure you'll be able to puzzle that one out yourself. So I'm just going to come now to then some final remarks. The horoscopes for the mutation conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn are really important indicators of paradigm shifts, and as such deserve much more attention as standalone charts. We can test things against them. If you look at the web against this chart for the mutation conjunction in air, you can find so much, take so much out of it. They're also clearly pointers in the development of nations. What we see when we go into a larger cycle, which is the cycle of precession, which I say is much more difficult to pin down. Nevertheless, if we move out of the left brain and stop quibbling about when it's going to start, then I think we can all see that the age of Pisces is phasing out. Even a country like Ireland, which is staunchly Catholic, the churches are empty and people are not finding what they want there. So there's some kind of change in the collective need. I also think the idea of the age of Aquarius, I agree with Michael York that it is the fundament on which the new age is building. But I think it's so potent in general because it taps into a collective memory that we have about greater cycles of time. And I also think mythology itself is not a lie. It's a poetry, it's metaphorical, and it's interesting that we are now in this area of the sky where the only sweet water is found in the urn of the Aquarian, the carrier, the water carrier. And water is becoming an issue. We have now in South Africa an incredible drought. We have ice caps melting. And it's possible with that moon in Scorpio that we need, as humanity might need, a crisis so big that we have to move aside from petty differences, and that larger risk will actually bring us into the sort of positive Aquarian energy, because Aquarius can be incredibly positive or it can be incredibly technocratic. You know, the personal, people, you know, sort of subjugated to machines, for example. So again, it's a contemporary myth, in my opinion, the age of Aquarius, but a very powerful one. And I think it is shaping and will shape. And I would say the sky has always inspired us, has always shown us the way to go. So there's something potent that this water carrier is showing us. And I think really it's about working together as opposed to seeing the whole and not getting lost in the parts. Thank you.